KFSR at CMAC present the Central Valley Ledger, a public affairs program featuring stories from all over the Central Valley with Sevag Tateosian, 90.7 KFSR.
Welcome to another edition of the Central Valley Ledger. We're recording out of the beautiful downtown Fresno studios of the Community Media Access Collaborative, Fresno and Clovis, in what was the Met Museum. And I bring up the Met Museum because our next guest is an artist. He's a musician. He's a person that has many talents. His pen name is A.S. Angelo. Welcome to the program.
Well, thank you so much.
So we talked years ago, and I see you on Facebook. So I was like, I'm going to reach out to him, and I'm going to invite him back to see what he's up to. First of all, tell us about yourself.
Well, I'm definitely an artist. If you ever wanted to meet a real artist, I started playing violin when I was 4 or 5, and my parents noticed I have good pitch and rhythm and all that kind of thing, and I studied with Linda Beckman at Juilliard. So it just kind of took off from there, and I got into music. But in college, I got more into art because I have a photographic memory for visual information as well.
Oh, interesting.
So, and I got into theater and acting and dancing and everything you can think of. So, but the art and the music kind of have surfaced as the main things that I do.
So tell us, were you raised in Fresno, or talk about where you grew up?
Well, I was born in Tacoma, Washington.
Okay,
but
up north?
Yes. My father, he was in the military and soon left to Korea. My first language was Korean.
Really?
Yes, I was 2.5 years in Korea, and I started sprechen Sie Korean. You know,
it's interesting. We've been
wherever, yeah.
So I'm gonna go off topic, but it's okay. You know, we've been talking about Korea before the show. Our student assistant producer Daisy studied in Korea.
Did she?
And I
South
went
Korea.
to South Korea.
Yeah.
And I went to South Korea on cultural competence training. So I'm pretty sure that we visited some of the same places. So
well, one of my best friends is Korean. His name is Josh Aschenbrenner, and he's an amazing musician, and he's Korean born, South Korean born.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So how long did you spend in Korea?
2.5 years.
So you were there 2.5 years, and then you moved again?
I was almost 3 when we moved back to the U.S. I've lived everywhere, and the longest period of time that I lived anywhere was in Brazil, so I speak Portuguese. Fala português.
Wow.
And I lived in the Amazon River. You know, I lived on, I guess you'd say, on the Amazon River, in the Amazon River Basin, with Kayapa, Xingu.
That's so interesting.
Yeah.
So how did you end up in Fresno? I mean, because
my mother, she needed some medical help. And there was a center here called Link Care Center on Bullard and I think it was on Shaw. It was on Shaw and Bullard, I want to say. But she went there for a little while, and so they put me in school. When I was 13, I went to Tenaya. They noticed I was in the orchestra there as the first violinist, and then they noticed he has a lot of talents, so we should send him to Roosevelt. So I went 4 years to Roosevelt, and then I went off to university for 6.5 years.
In Fresno, or that was out of town?
I went to some different locations, but the main one I went to was John Brown University, and that's because it's a feed-in for Dayspring Hallmark. So I thought I could illustrate greeting cards, and I have. You can see it. You will buy my greeting cards in the store and not even know that's me.
And we're going to go there because that's an interesting part. But before we go there, so, I mean, Brazil, you lived in Brazil and you lived in Fresno. I mean, do you miss some of these parts that you lived at one point?
Well, Brazil has one of the most amazing jungles in the world, and I miss that. But it's also extremely dangerous, and you can get malaria and yellow fever just like that. You know, it's not exactly the safest place to live. So there's wonderful things like you can see monkeys and hummingbirds and parrots and things like that, but it's also very tough to live there, especially in the north. Yeah.
And so you go to university, you get educated, and then So what, I mean, was it art, music? Was it a little bit of both?
I focused on multiple things. I couldn't help being down in the music department because that's a huge part of me. And I mastered the art department. I got straight A's in everything, just excelling. But I also wanted to do literature because I was thinking about film and Hollywood. So I studied literature very hard, and I wrote a novel which published in 2008 called Fairybound. And I'm on my second novel. It takes me a long time to write a novel, especially when it has 435 pages.
Wow.
So it's no small thing to write and to communicate in a way that people find something interesting in it. And I'm still working on that. Yeah.
It's interesting, you know, you come across as someone who just can't sit still. Like
No,
you're, I
I'm
see
a
you-
nervous wreck.
Not
Yeah.
nervous, but like
Yeah.
you know, you just like getting involved in different things, and so I see
Yeah.
that in your Facebook page because
Oh,
I
yeah.
see you playing the piano. And by the way, congratulations, you got engaged.
I did. Yes, to Amina Kubanova. She's a concert violinist, among other things, and she can sing and play music as well, many instruments.
So one day, I wish I was a fly in the wall in your house because
Oh.
you can hear the music and all the stuff. I'm sure it's beautiful.
If you noticed when I came in, I have kind of red eyes. So there's some bugs in my house. I hope I wouldn't spray you. That would be awful. So, but say you were a fly in my house, you'd see a bunch of artwork, and you'd always hear me playing at certain times of day, as long as the neighbors are okay, and usually they are with it. They like what I'm doing. If not, I just go to Steinway and I play on the big grand piano there with Hainer and Hans Oviedo. So
let's talk about
yeah,
Hallmark,
Hallmark.
the store
Yeah,
that everybody knows, the cards and stuff. So you
yeah.
have, you could
There
purchase.
is a Easter bunny. There's a Santa Claus. There's things that I did for Dayspring, and then if you remember, Hallmark bought out Dayspring, and they continued some of the cards. And you can every now and then I'll see my bunny at Easter time, or I'll see a snowman I did. You know.
How does that make you feel, by the way? I mean, the
Well, the
person.
bad part about that is my signature's not on it because we
Oh.
weren't allowed to. So, and one reason why I kind of left, well, it's two reasons. One, they had fluorescent lighting, and I have scotopic sensitivity.
Okay.
And I did ask, I just kindly asked, could I work with a more blue light and yellow light and stuff? And they said no. And I didn't want to be drawing teddy bears all day under fluorescent lighting. And so I left. But the other reason was because of that. They weren't giving credit to the artist.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it
Yeah.
feels. I don't know. It would feel good to know that your art's up
Absolutely.
there, but
Yeah.
the fact that nobody knows you did it, and so
Yeah.
you know, I get where you're coming
Well,
from.
some people have found me anyhow.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So, the other thing that you're a part of in the Fresno area are these art hops.
Oh, yeah.
So, like you've
Art
played
hop's
at different
big.
ones. Talk about art hop and where you've played and what you've done.
Well, I've definitely played at K Jewel with Mark Blake. He's the curator there for that gallery that they have in the front. And it's really the main family radio station as far as that goes. It's a nice place to perform or show your art. There's a Cornerstone coffee shop, which,
It's a great coffee shop, by the way.
Yes.
Not too far from here.
yeah, you can just walk down the street. There it is. Yeah, and I've done Sorensen's, which is a little further out, but Sorensen's represents a lot of artists. And so I've done the Pink Show. I've done many things for Art Hop that they've done, November Nudes, and different aspects that they've had. I'm not as involved in that anymore, but I would consider doing it again. Yeah,
So in Fresno, let's talk about Fresno. Do we
Fresno.
support
Yeah.
artists and musicians? Are we, in my opinion, and I
Mhm.
may be completely wrong in this, but over the past like 5 years, we've made strides in supporting artists and musicians because you all got to make a living too.
Mm-hmm.
Talk about the community a little bit.
Well, there's nothing wrong with this community at all. First of all, it's typical in terms of every genre of the community. There's no trouble there. And if you really are talented, you'll end up getting plenty of work. You know, if you're really amazing, but sometimes we need a format. And so I want to point out Bob Sullivan, who has a stage on the north end of town, Fort Washington and Bryant.
Right, it's the,
And I can't tell you how booked I've been since I took Amina and we performed there. And
so you perform there. It's that bistro
absolutely.
up there.
I would be performing there right now during this interview if I wasn't here with you.
Well, thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you for
it's no trouble.
making the time to come over here. But
Thank you.
So really, venues like that
Sure.
are important. And then I hear there's a coffee shop in Tower District.
Oh,
that
yeah.
There's a place that people perform. So little. I don't want to say little as little, but places like that.
There's several open mics. One of them is Michael Alt's The Review coffee shop. There's a theater in the back, and it's not a big one, but a little theater in the back. He has an open mic he's run for 7 years there. And Intimo's with John Clifton.
Intimo's, okay.
Intimo's is fantastic because you got some of the best talent in the whole valley. John Clifton has been on the cover of many magazines for his blues and his country and his different styles that he does.
So, and then you go to these things, you perform.
Absolutely.
And then after, I mean, people come up to you, right? And you get booked.
Yeah, it could happen that way. And sometimes someone hears something about you from someone else, which is actually the best way. If I go and say to someone, I'm the most talented person you'll ever meet, it comes off kind of not the best light, you know? I don't want to say anything about myself, but if someone says, hey, I heard this pianist, he sounds pretty good, I love his jazz, you ought to check him out if you want Christmas music. You ought to check him out if you want to hear Ray Charles or Elton John or some Billy Joel, you know?
So so
word of mouth.
Let's say I hear you,
Yeah.
and I'm like, okay, this guy's awesome, this guy's awesome. I've heard you.
Yeah.
So I'm not making it up. But when would I invite, like, how would I, if I didn't have this show, how would I invite you? Like birthday parties or talk about some of these things you get booked at by private people?
It could be any event where your family, it could be background music or it could be the main event. We were booked for a lovely wedding in the middle of summer for a guy named Gary, who's a very wealthy person, and his only daughter wanted us to play a certain song, and he knew that we could learn it fast enough and give it the magic. So we got booked for that wedding. It could be a family at Christmas. They know I can play any Christmas song, or I can play Christmas songs with the family while they're singing in any key that you want.
So you know what? So like someone having a birthday party,
birthdays,
wants or any occasion where they want background music, they can call you and you'll play what? The violin, the piano, what?
Anything they want. Often I think they want to hear. It depends on what kind of event it is. If it's like a winery, they don't want too much. So I have to be careful about that. And then sometimes they want you to rock out and bring it, you know. And that's when you bring the big, you know, Queen and rock and roll, the blues, you know, Ray Charles, Elton John, Billy Joel, just big songs that everyone know and they hear and they feel strongly about. So,
interesting.
Yeah.
So, and how can people book you if they wanted to have you perform at their private gathering?
They could connect with me on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. They can have my personal number. They could talk to Bob Sullivan, Mark Blake, any of these people they could talk to. Or I work at Steinway & Sons. You could talk to Hans Oviedo.
And over there you teach piano, I heard.
I
so
teach
talk
piano.
about the piano. I mean, you give piano lessons to everybody?
Well, I can't mention his name because it's private.
Okay.
But I had a 17-year-old learning Santa Baby today, and it's straight up jazz. It's 2-5-1, and I'm teaching him how to do that. His father's the one that designed the building.
Wow,
So,
that's interesting.
Yeah, you can learn. You'd be surprised what you can learn if you put your mind to it.
Okay,
and we make it fun. We're trained on how to just make it fun, you know?
So how many, so I don't know anything, let's say I don't know anything about pianos. How many lessons would I need with you before I can not be an expert, not be, but kind of hold a rhythm.
Hands together, I could have you in 1 month learn a basic blues lick that would impress all your neighbors. You're done. In a month, I can have you playing the blues.
Interesting.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
Let's talk about the importance of music and a piano in the life of someone. How important is it that we incorporate music? We try. So with my wife and I, with our kids, we try to incorporate music. We try to sing to them. We try to, get them
How
to
many
sing.
kids do you have?
Well,
Yeah.
you haven't been here.
No, I've been missing
it's
out
been a
on all
while
of this.
since you and I have talked.
Yes.
I've got 3 kids, and
Ah,
last time we talked, I had
congratulations.
no kids. So
Yeah.
so a lot happened in the span.
We were
of
both young men.
a lot happened in the span of 5 years that we've talked.
A lot
or
can
6
happen in
years that
5
we've
years.
talked.
Yeah.
So, but how important is that? How important are parents and music into a kid's life?
I think it is stimulating, and I have a theory that children that are exposed to certain sounds like violin and piano, guitar, well, any one of those 3, tend to have longer neurons and tend to have better memories and just are overall more high functioning, and therefore their grades are going to go up in school. They're going to be the leaders and the community leaders. They're going to think a little faster and a little, I just think it's good for culture, civilization. Music is stimulating. It's not going to hurt your child at all. It's going to help them. And it teaches patience. It teaches when you stick to something, you're going to reap a benefit over time. It's just like if you plant a seed and you wait and water it and give it the right, conditions, it's going to produce a tree that will produce fruit. Same with music.
Good analogy.
Even if you don't make it as your career, it's not the thing that you do. It can be, it can accentuate your entire life as a component where you can emote, and a component where you have enjoyment and relaxation. Yeah, so, and stimulation.
I love the emotion in music.
Yeah.
There are piano players and people who play violins that will bring tears to your eyes. I don't know if you're one of those, but tell us about how you incorporate emotion.
I don't want to brag. I don't. I really don't, but people have cried when I played. So I think sometimes I'm playing something that touches a memory in their nostalgic mind.
And
it takes them on a time trip,
And sometimes the music is just so powerful and so it just, brings you to tears.
Absolutely. That's emotion.
We've talked about the music aspect of your career and the singing aspect, but last time you were on, I specifically remember a picture of Barack Obama that you drew. You're an artist too, so tell us about your artwork.
May I show you a piece of artwork?
You can, and
Okay.
point it to our camera 3, which is this one.
This is a portrait I did of, can you guess?
I'm going to guess Marilyn Monroe.
You're correct, which means I think I got close enough.
That's a great portrait, by the way.
Thank you so much. So I've done Barack Obama. I've done many celebrities, many personages, many people in Hollywood. I've worked for Hollywood people in terms of artwork. I can draw anyone I see. I can draw anything. I've done a lot of pet portraits, a lot of children portraits. I've done people's teenage son, teenage daughter. I've done old people, young people, anybody. I can draw. That's my gift.
Beautiful painting there.
Yeah,
So
thank you.
ballpark,
Yeah.
It's tough to say, but ballpark, if I wanted you to, what would something like this go for?
Well, if it's a portrait of you and you want it in oil or you want it in acrylic or something, I would probably charge $400 or
And
so.
there's a lot of detail and work that goes into this.
Oh, yeah.
How long would it take? How long did it take you to do this?
Well, I've been working on it in the last 2 weeks very strongly, and I think it's finished. And so does my fiance. She kind of helps me to know when something's done and to stop. I can be perfectionistic and want to
That looks very good.
But yeah, so it's finished. I'm gonna put it in a frame, and probably I started it 2 years ago, and then I just let it sit for a while, for a year and a half, and then I got back into it. I put a varnish on it. It kind of destroyed it, so I rebuilt it over the last 2 weeks, and this is what you get.
It's a nice painting. I mean,
Yeah.
there's detail. You've got attention to detail, and so, I mean, good luck. I think these will easily sell.
I love these lights, and it helps it to glow, whereas if it's not lit, it won't glow as much, So good lighting is important in a gallery.
So what you're saying is portraits like this or drawings like this, artwork like this need to be under a light, and it gives it the whole balance.
Everything that we see as an artist, anything that we see in the visual field, dark and light, is a result of the reaction of light. So if you think about it, the painting is only an illusion. It's just 2 dimensions. I'm trying to create an illusion of 3 dimension. So light across her face is what tells us it's Marilyn Monroe. And if that's accurate enough, if it's representing her closely enough, you'll be convinced. So when we hang it in a gallery, the lighting is very important. It can determine the exact blue or the exact red or something that you have. If you have different kind of light, it will look different. So
people can commission you to do their artwork like this.
Mm-hmm.
How can they see some of your other photos that you've done?
Well, I've got a bunch on Facebook. I have a bunch on Instagram. I have 100,000 views on YouTube of videos with artwork in them. You can see them there. Yeah.
So this is a tough question, but what's a typical day like for you? I mean, I imagine you get up in the morning and you're creating something.
Well, I also work with a lot of singers and a lot of students and a lot of other people. So my schedule's quite busy, and thanks to my fiance, she'll sometimes remind me I have an event or I have something I need to be at, and I have a little calendar and a schedule, but I always take time to practice. I still practice myself. I still have goals musically and artistically. I still do the basic things that allow us to be good at what we do.
Interesting.
It's important to always learn and grow,
On Facebook, I also, you mentioned your fiance.
Yes.
She's also talented when it comes to music. And was she trying to get a part somewhere, or was she doing a show or something like that? You posted
Yes.
something about an orchestra or something like that. I don't know if I read it right. It just zoomed across my feed, but I'm telling you the story because she seems talented too.
She's a virtuoso violinist. Part of her problem is she really is good with virtuoso because she puts her heart and she can sound, you'll hear it and feel something. And sometimes in an orchestra, they just need someone to play exactly what's there with the rest of the orchestra, and they don't need a lot of interpretation.
Mm-hmm.
And so part of her problem is she's overqualified in some ways. She went to St. Petersburg Conservatory, and she really does know her stuff. And she can do both. And so she is in some orchestras, like she's in the opera in Tel Aviv, and they just did Beethoven's Ninth Symphony, which is no small affair.
Yeah.
Beethoven's Ninth is the first classical piece where they had an operatic section. They'd never combined a symphony with an opera ever until that particular symphony by Beethoven. He thought, I want singers in my symphony.
Interesting.
Yeah, so pleasure for her to play that.
So we're running out of time this week on the program. I can obviously talk to you for a very, very long time. I mean, why Fresno? You can be anywhere. Now you're engaged to someone who has talent internationally. Are we going to lose you? Like, I'm afraid that one day I'm going to see a Facebook post from you and it's going to say, I'm in, I don't know, some other big town. But, Where do you see yourself?
Well, Fresno's our home, you know, and I've been all over the world while living here, you know. We can go anywhere,
Yeah,
but Amina likes it here.
very nice.
So I think there's a lot in store for us and Fresno, you know.
I do, and
Yeah,
I hope that we continue to grow our artistic folks here because
absolutely.
you know we have some very talented people in this town.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I completely agree. There are some incredibly gifted people from the valley. Yeah.
So we mentioned some places people can go to watch local talent. I want you to talk about it again. There's a place in the Tower District. There's a place in North Fresno. You tell us.
Yeah, and they're having a nice concert tomorrow at Steinway. A very talented 16-year-old who is from the valley, and he's studied at Juilliard and everything. He's quite something.
Very nice.
Yeah, so you can go see virtuosos and geniuses. You can also just see the guitar player who can sing. You can see divas, and you can go to clubs and hear singers. It's really something. There's a lot to do here.
There is, and you know,
Yeah.
on that note, we're out of time this week on the program. But I appreciate you making time to come here, and I look forward to continuing to follow you on Facebook and see all the cool things you're up to.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Sevag, I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you for coming on.
Yeah.
That's all for this edition of the Central Valley Ledger. Thank you to our audience members listening to this broadcast on KFSR 90.7 FM and to those watching on CMAC, Comcast 93 and AT&T 99. Hope you enjoyed the program about art and music by local musician and artist A.S. Angelo. Thank you to our technical director, Gary Johnson, and to our student associate producer, Daisy Ramirez, for making this show what it is. Tune in next week to a new edition.
KFSR and CMAC present the Central Valley Ledger every Sunday morning at 11:30. For complete program schedule, visit kfsr.org.